Hello and welcome into another episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. It is our fourth episode this semester. And guys, you know what to do. We're going to get into every single sport, talk about it, have some panelists on. Let's get right into it.
Welcome to JSW, WCTV's home for Waynesburg sports. Watch our analysts discuss fall, winter, and spring sports and cover topics such as Athletes of the Week, phenomenal plays, and intense games on a weekly basis. Tune in every Tuesday to hear what's going on with your favorite sports at Waynesburg University here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Where else would you want to be on?
Where else would you rather be? Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly, and for our first segment, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of the sports that we're not going to cover on our main panels, where we talk about cross country, golf, and tennis. And today I'm joined by no one else other than Joe Sharilla. How are you doing today, Joey?
Doing great. I mean, it's been quite a day so far, especially for sports so far. But, can't complain.
Can't complain. Got a lot to get into today, but let's start with cross country. Joe, do you want to kind of give us a breakdown of the men's side of cross country?
Yeah, let's hop right into it. So for the men's side of cross country, they were at the Lock Haven Invitational, and they finished 15th out of 18 teams. There were a lot of different teams here. Division I athletes were here with St. Bonaventure, along with some different Division II teams as well, Lock Haven being one of those. But Aiden McGee, he was able to finish sub 30, which was him being the 61st student to do so within Waynesburg athletic career, or within the institution. He was 29-22-9, and he finished 82nd out of 187 on this course today, and it was 59th under Coach Hardy. So it's pretty cool to just see, although as a team, it may not be clicking on all cylinders, but as individuals, we're definitely creating new paths. Continuing on from that, Kyle Cassell had a 31-16-3, finishing at 132nd. Ethan Wilson, 31-48-6 with a 140, or at 140. Nikki Todd at 32-18-8 at 150th. Aaron Sanders at 33-24 with 157, and Luke Wilson. It's been a day at 34-03-4, finishing 166th out of 187. So it wasn't the greatest thing that we're going to see from this men's cross country team, but it was still showed highlights throughout each individual.
And same thing with the women. They were also at the Lock Haven Invitational. They finished 25th out of 29th. Grace Tanksley, finished 130th. Freshman Taylor Servert finished 159th. Reagan Pettis finished 173rd. Chloe Fields finished 194th, and right behind her was Jalen Mundorf. She finished 195th. Erin DeLong and Lily Ryer were finished 221st and 215th, But let's jump into now the golf side of things. Now, it's been rainy here in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, so there was supposed to be a match today, Joey, what happened in that?
Yeah, so with the Waynesburg Invitational for the men's side of things, they were starting at 9:30 today, and they were able to tee off, but most groups only got to about 6 to 8 holes through until the course was just unplayable. The conditions were not as good as they would hoped it to be, even if it was raining. Luckily, no lightning or thunder, so they didn't have to, wait off like we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they have postponed that. No future date has been yet announced. It's only been about an hour since they postponed it today. So as of right now, they're just going to be looking forward to the Grove City Invitational on October 3rd, this Thursday. And then after that, they have about a week off until the President's Athletic Conference Fall Championship, which is going to be at Avalon Lakes in Warren, Ohio.
Yeah, and I was able to see Hudson Pinkovich. He had a picture, and it was just looked so miserable outside.
It's not the greatest conditions for golf, that's for sure.
To play in golf in that kind of conditions. But the women, they also competed, and Abigail Noble finished 56th, and Julia Clement finished with 126. Now, they only had a couple play. It was an individuals. It wasn't really a group. But from that standpoint, only two of them, both being freshmen, competed in this one. So it's great to see some of the youth go out there and be able to compete as well. Now, let's wrap this final off with some tennis, Joey. They played 2 matches since we've been on here. The one at Carlow and the one at Westminster. You talk about the Carlow, I'll talk about Westminster.
Yeah, so at Carlow, it was a very close contested match that we saw between all of these teams. It was a 3-4 loss. They won 2 doubles matches and 2 singles matches. The 2 doubles wins were from Carly Starcher and Julia Corey, and then the other duo was Allie Bailey and Aubrey Burns. And then for the 2 single, it was Allie Bailey and Julia Corey. So definitely some strong suits that we saw in here. Definitely Carlo was one of those teams to be looking out for a victory out of this. Unfortunately, they lost to Carlo last season, 8-1 when Carlo visited Waynesburg. This time they were at Carlo. It was a little bit closer than they thought, but unfortunately not able to pull out the win this time around.
And the match they had against Westminster, they lost 7-0. But it seems like they're kind of getting in a general right direction. They're having some closer matches than last year, where it was kind of a blowout almost every single time. But it is seen that they're kind of on the ups and in a progressive way.
Yeah, definitely. They're bringing in a lot more. This team is a lot younger, and they're bringing in a lot more young talent, and they're getting there. Now, granted, there are some teams within our conference, like Westminster, that are just a struggle. It's hard to do in general. They only had 13 points scored during this entire match, so it's hard to get to that point. But when you're showing, different prowess throughout different matches, especially at Carlo, it's definitely something to look forward to in the coming seasons.
And their next match is Wednesday at home against Teal. But that's going to do it for our intro segment. Don't go anywhere. Connor Hoy is going to give you your top 5 plays of the month. Don't go anywhere.
Have you ever wondered what the life of a Yellow Jacket newspaper looks like? Why don't we show you? Straight from the printing press to our editor's desk into the newsstands, you can pick up your own copy of the Yellow Jacket newspaper in Buell Hall, the Stover Campus Center, or any of our other newsstand locations on campus. When you get your very own copy, you can read it at your own leisure anywhere around Waynesburg. You can kill time waiting for your next class to start by reading up on campus news and our op-ed pieces. You can even take your copy to the Beehive and catch up with friends as you read up on the latest regional stories. Looking for a peaceful place to read now? Head on over to the Everly Library. Sit back, relax, and catch up on the latest in Waynesburg sports. Oh, and if you didn't know, we are also digital at theyellowjacket.org.
Hello and welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. I'm Connor Hoy and I'm going to be revealing the top 5 plays of September. Let's get right into it. At number 5, we have Jordan Stein's 1,000th thing against Muskingum University. Jordan Stein, as a junior, has been a big asset to the Waynesburg University volleyball team and continues to set records. There it is there. Great 1,000th thing. Have yourself a day, Jordan. Why don't you? She's been able to set records all season. And then Waynesburg gets the point here. That's a great play by the volleyball team there. At number 4, we have another volleyball highlight. Senior Maddie Dayton, 2 game-winning points for Waynesburg in set 1 and set 2. She's able to push the ball across. Bethany is currently ranked 8th and Waynesburg is ranked 11th. This is a huge win for Waynesburg. You saw the first one there. Maddie is on our side here. She pops the ball up here, goes back over. Bethany's able to get it back over. Maddie here is able to just push that ball over. That's a great point for Waynesburg volleyball again. Here we go at number 3. We have Waverly Lawrence goal for the women's soccer team against their win over Carlo University 4-1. She makes this goal just look great. Ball gets passed out. She's able to, just kind of chip the goalkeeper here, so to speak, right in the back of the net. Great goal from Waverly. And, that's about 30 yards away, guys. So that's a great first goal for Waynesburg against Carlo there. At number 2, we have Dagan Williams, 79-yard touchdown run, or catch, for the football team against Case Western Reserve on the opening play. Great blocks by Waynesburg here, down the 30 to the 20 to the 10. Touchdown Waynesburg. That's a great play there by Dagan Williams. And they're allowed to have a nice celebration there for their first touchdown of the year and of the game there. And your top play of the month, Sarpong Kwabia's game-winning goal against Lancaster Bible in the final 10 seconds. Great ball in, off the goalkeeper, celebrating the corner. Why don't you, Sarpong? Great work there. He's done it against LaRoche. He can do it against Lancaster. Puts the ball in and LaRoche off Noah Beiser's head. Great play there against Lancaster Bible College as well. Quabia's had a great season, and we look forward to seeing what he has in the future. Well, that has been it for your top 5 plays of September. Coming up next, we have Brett Gambita at the desk for football.
so close.
Cornucopia.
Try instead of train.
I love this show.
Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly. Guys, we're going to get into the football side of things. First win, 21-7 win at St. Vincent. And today, we have joined with us today, Brett Gambita. Brett, how are you doing today?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing great. You know, it's a Monday. I think I said that last time, but I'm
Oh,
happy.
really? It's Monday?
I think. Last time unless the guy that makes the days messed up a long time ago, and we're still.
Well, if you're watching this when it releases, it's Tuesday. So happy Tuesday.
Yeah, happy
You know what? I'm wearing this shirt, right? This is
Yeah, I wanted to ask. That shirt looks familiar.
last year JSW, first time ever on JSW. Waynesburg won, and I wore this shirt. First Waynesburg victory of the season.
Full circle.
I'm wearing this shirt.
All right, well, let's get into the questions, okay?
Let's do it.
So
Let's talk about this win.
dominant win. I would say it was a pretty dominant win, you could say. I mean, in Waynesburg's standard of how this year has been, a 21-7 win is something we haven't really seen offensively from them. The highest scoring they've had all year. Talk about a little bit of how well that offense played on Saturday.
I saw one major improvement in this offense, and that was the fact that they allowed zero sacks. They allowed 4 against W&J, only allowing 0 sacks against St. Vincent. That allowed drives to not be stalled out, drives to continue. And Waynesburg had back-to-back scoring drives for the first time this season, back-to-back touchdowns. And they also scored in the first quarter for the first time this season. So this Waynesburg offense was kind of firing on all cylinders in this St. Vincent game, and that's something I'd like to see continue into the next couple weeks here against Carnegie Mellon, Bethany, and Allegheny. So offense has been rolling.
Yeah, and with that defense, they've been improving each and every week so far that we've seen. And in this, they only let up 1 touchdown. What are your major takeaways that you've seen throughout this defensive team?
They've done a great job limiting the scoring, as we mentioned. I mean, St. Vincent scored on their first drive of the game. They went scoreless the rest of the way. A great job by the Waynesburg defense. Even as St. Vincent got deeper and deeper into Waynesburg territory, they were able to force stoppages, force turnovers on downs, and limit St. Vincent, and ended up keeping them scoreless through 3 quarters. And 4 interceptions in 4 weeks, guys, by 4 different players. How about that? Ewing Jamison against Case Western, Raymond Davis, and Kulik Wooten versus W&J. This time it was Javion Smith against St. Vincent getting the job done with an INT.
INT.
Nice.
And you were talking about different players who have been making an impact. Who do you think that has been a key player that has kind of been under the radar, but you've seen them kind of grow into this Waynesburg type of football, and they've been really helping the team out?
One player that I would mention in particular this week was Nehemi Mark. He had 4 catches, 27 yards, and a touchdown, his first touchdown of his collegiate career. And he stepped up big as Isaac Trout was pretty much held quiet the whole game, our number 1 receiver. But when Trout's not always going to be able to perform at that high level, so we're going to need guys to step up when he's not. And Nehemi did a great job of doing that this week against St. Vincent. And then the whole O-line in general, we mentioned they didn't allow a single sack the whole game, and they cleared the holes for Colley as they've been doing throughout the whole season.
Yeah, and you mentioned the offensive line, and the offensive line in the past has had a lot more penalties that have come, especially as of last year.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen as many, especially in this game against St. Vincent, but throughout the entire season. So with these a lot of less penalties, are we moving in the right direction, or do you think we're going to get back into that penalty-heavy offense and defensive line?
For sure, I think we're moving in the right direction, and I don't see us going back to committing that many penalties when we've been limiting them over the course of the last couple weeks. And honestly, the whole season really has been pretty penalty-free, especially compared to last year. I mean, I know the bar was set kind of low, but yeah, not really a lot of penalties this year, and that's something that can continue throughout the year just based on these couple games here. You get a good start, and you're going to stick with that and try to limit the penalties the whole rest of the season.
Right.
Now we're going to look into next week. Got a huge game against Carnegie Mellon at Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon coming off of a 30-27 overtime winner against Washington and Jefferson.
That was a thriller.
So it was a great game, but Brett, how does this team come together to be able to manage a big dog like that next week?
Well, Waynesburg defense is first going to have to not let any receivers beat them deep. We saw John Paduzzi, Jacob McCosco for W&J get behind the Waynesburg defense. We can't let Brendan McCullough and Reese Kolk do the same thing. And there's a couple quarterbacks, I say, on this Carnegie Mellon offense, mainly Ben Mills. He's He's a dual threat ability, had 50 rushing yards against W&J. We're going to have to get a spy on him to make sure we can limit the scrambling. And he's also their punter, so we got to watch out for the fake punts. There's a chance that he might take off on one of those. But then Joey McGinnis, the fourth, the backup quarterback, he has scored rushing touchdowns in back-to-back seasons against Waynesburg. He'll come in the goal line or in a short yardage situation. They'll have a QB designed run for him. We're gonna have to watch out for that.
I did not know that. That's a fun little fact.
Against Geneva 2 weeks ago, 3 touchdowns on 3 carries.
3 rushing.
3 rushing.
Wow. Okay.
Gonna have to, when he's inserted in the game, Waynesburg has to be alert and aware.
Well, you've been talking about Carnegie Mellon's rushing game, but our rushing game ourselves from the Bees themselves. They've been continuing to roll down that field. We keep telling them roll Bees. You know, they've been continuing to do that. Do you see them continuing on this rushing game, or do you see them potentially giving the ball back to Sam Barber and having it go through the air a lot more?
As I think I mentioned this before, the run will open up the pass, but in the Carnegie Mellon game, we might find ourselves trailing where we would have to pass the ball. So, you know what though? I still wouldn't shy away from the run. I'd get Cauley involved as much as possible. And even if we're not running the ball with Cauley, we can see him as a possible check down option for Sam Barber, because in the St. Vincent game, Cauley had 4 catches for 43 yards out of the backfield. And that's something that really helped the Waynesburg offense move down the field. So if you can't get Cauley, if you can't get his legs going in the run game, you can at least get him swinging out of the backfield on some check down routes for Barber.
Now, we're almost halfway through the season already. It has been a pretty quick couple of 4 weeks, you could say. Now, what do you want this Waynesburg team to be able to achieve? What do you think their main goal should be at the end of the season, where we are as of right now?
I'd say build off of last season's win total. We only walked out of last season with 2 wins. Come away with 3, maybe 4, and try to hang into this Carnegie Mellon game for as long as possible. Don't let it slip away. That'll give you a chance at the end. And with the couple other opponents coming up, Allegheny and Bethany, those are 2 games you must take right there, and then maybe taking a 5th game against, say, Geneva. Just coming away with as many wins as you can.
And how do you think they should be? How do you think they should do that?
Keep running the ball, keep doing what's working, and try to mix in the pass as well, because Waynesburg has been outgained in the passing game in all 4 games this season. So try to mix in some passing as well as continuing to run the ball as dominantly as they have. And the line's just going to keep blocking, and defense just don't let guys get behind you, get pressure on the quarterback. So simplicities.
Awesome.
Simplicities.
Yeah.
Simple things.
Exactly. Keeping it simple. And, of course, they're going to be keeping it simple as they travel to Carnegie Mellon this Saturday. They're going to be playing there. Brett, thank you so much for coming on. But now we're going to switch it over to the court, where we're going to have Ethan Spazarski join us right up here on the desk for some volleyball. Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly, where we're going to be here to set it off for some volleyball. We're joined by Ethan Spazarski, Seth Adams here along with us. Ethan, how are we doing today?
So far, so good. You know, I need to stand in front of a fan. I feel like I've been sweating all day. But, I mean, other than that, I can't complain. You know,
good.
Pretty good day.
Very nice.
Good.
So we're started off here. Riley Ruffley, she was just named today the Women's Waynesburg Athlete of the Week for the female side of things. Just kind of explain why she earned that, how she got this, accolade just under her belt. How'd she do that?
Well, 58 assists over the last 3 matches is really going to set you up, I guess you could say. Play on words there.
She did that.
I appreciate that. It's really going to set you up for success there. I mean, Riley is a huge part of this team. She's been leading the way in the assist category for pretty much the whole entire season. So, I mean, that's definitely going to earn you, a spot for the Female Athlete of the Week for Waynesburg. I mean, like I said, it's been more of a consistent thing than anything. So seeing her do that is awesome. Seeing her continue to progress. I mean, 58 over 3 matches is a lot. I mean, I was seeing it, when I was writing this all down, I was trying to do some comm math, like typing it out, and I was like, it kept adding up and adding up. So
that's a lot.
And the nice thing is, it's not just Riley too. It's everyone. The stats are continuing to pile up over these matches. I mean, they're these important stats. They're starting to pile up, but we'll get to that here in the next few questions, I'm sure.
And let's take a look back at the last couple of matches they played. 3-1 loss against Mount Aloysius, a 3-2 loss against La Roche. Now, what can they do to maybe get a step back? It seems like they're there. They're competing more. They're getting in closer matches. But what can they do to get that final step forward and not have these close losses, Ethan?
Well, they were showing us a little bit last year. I mean, we talked about in the past with Bethany, but here, I mean, they're competing. I mean, 3-2, 3-1. I mean, Waynesburg has won their first set in the last 2 matches, but they're not. They're starting strong, but they're not finishing. I mean, the last 3 sets. I mean, La Roche won 2-1. I mean, it's back and forth the entire time. And against Mount Aloysius, the last 3 sets were won by Mount Aloysius. You just got to be able. If you start strong, you got to finish strong too. And we're seeing that. And I think the mindset and the chemistry is definitely building there and getting there. You see it. I've talked to some of the ladies on the team, and it's clear that that's there as well. But I mean, just continuing to build that foundation and carry through. That's going to open up a lot of doors for you. I mean, they're competing against these non-conference teams, which is really good. But you want to start seeing you finish these sets or finish some of these crucial sets. I mean, they lost the second set against Mallows, just 32-30. There were multiple rallies from each side's competing. You got to be one to put your foot down there. I mean, and then they lose by 2. I mean, you have to lose by 2 at least for each set to finish. But 27-25 in the third set for Mount Aloysius. I mean, you see it in the third set and fourth set for La Roche too. 25-22, 27-25. They're competing. That's a consistent factor. They're scrapping to it, and that's the word. I mean, Andy Stanko used a lot in his recaps, was scrapping and fighting back and rallying. So just finish strong. You start strong. Now you just got to finish strong.
And I think one of the key improvements upon this team so far is that Jordan Stein, it was about a week ago, a few matches ago, she only had about like 1 dig in 1 match. And it was kind of shocking to all of us when we were reading over stuff that, why'd she only have this 1 dig? And it might have been something with coach and Stein as a player altogether, but she was able to get back into it pretty quickly. Explain Stein's, return back to this team in a strong fashion.
Well, I talked to Jordan because I was editing the recap that Tyler Aaron had wrote, and I was like, what, really? And so I went to Jordan. I said, Jordan, like, what happened? She goes, it's just an off night. All athletes have off nights. That comes with the territory of being an athlete. You're going to have those days and droughts. But 90 kills in the last 3, or not 90 kills, 90 digs, excuse me, in the last 3 matches. I'd say we're back to Superwoman territory. When she's back there on the back line of defense, she's doing everything in her power, putting her body on the line. Think about it. She had over 1,000 digs, against Muskam a little bit ago. 100 of that, 1/10 of that, she's doing just in the last 3 matches. Like, it's piling up. I mentioned the piling up, and Jordan's perfectly fine. You have those off matches once or twice, and it stinks it's against Allegheny in a PAC match where you really want to step up against a really good team who I'd argue Allegheny is probably one of the best volleyball teams in all of women's volleyball and all of PAC. So, I mean, it stinks for that, but at the same time, she's finding her groove. We're getting back way into it, and it's going to be very crucial because after this next match, we're really starting PAC play. You got to be ready for that.
And as this is being recorded, they play tonight versus Penn State Chenango. What do you want to see out of this team in tonight's match?
Well, alluded to the beginning, finish. Penn State Chenango's won 4 of the last 5 matches, but on the road, they're 4-4 as a team. So Penn State Chenango is definitely a better home team, and in conference, they're 2-3 when they're at home, but they're 5-0 against conference opponents. Obviously, Penn State Chenango's not in the PAC. Kyra Cross, she's kind of their utility all-action player, kind of their Swiss Army knife. 205 digs this year, but she also leads the team in kills, points, and average points per set. So she's there competing. This team averages less kills than Waynesburg does right now. Waynesburg averages a little over 9. Penn State Chenango 7.9. And then, both teams also are averaging 15.91 digs per set, which I think is actually really cool. What are the odds that you finish with the exact decimal point of the same digs per set? I thought that was pretty funny. I was having a good chuckle while I was reading that. But, overall, Penn State Chenango is 6-9 right now. They're 5-0 in conference. Take advantage of that home court advantage because Waynesburg at home, they're 2-0 right now. Majority of their losses have come at neutral sites and when they're not here at the Rudy. When they're at the Rudy Marissa Fieldhouse, they're undefeated right now. I know there are only 2 matches, but utilize that. Finish strong, start strong. Those are my 2 big points.
Yeah, and you were talking about Penn State Chenango. That's going to be their last match before they move into PAC play. What do they need to do to improve upon before they get to that point within the President's Athletic Conference?
Continue to see the growth of everyone kind of stepping up, that next woman up mentality, we'll call it. Because, I mean, we're seeing different names. I mean, Paige Mortimer, she's been a consistent driving force. She's had 31 kills and 4 blocks in the last 3 matches. We talked about Riley with her 58 assists. Paige Cowsley, she has 37 assists in that span as well. Continue to distribute the ball, utilize everyone in their key positions. I mean, and the nice thing about Hope Johnson as a coach, something we're not used to seeing, she's using different patterns and different people, and she's turning things around, and I mean, just trying to see what works. And so if you find what works for you, and what we talked about before as well, Waynesburg can compete in these PAC matches. They may not always win every single one of them, but they're going to compete. They're already competing where they are now. I mean, their record, I think personally for me, the record doesn't completely reflect with what we're seeing this year from this team and the growth that's what's seen from beginning to now. There was a lot of growth from the beginning of the year to now.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Ethan, for joining us. And now we're going to move it over to the pitch. Men's and women's soccer coming up with Michael McKenzie. Don't go anywhere.
Library, where you can find out everything about anything on campus. Through the double doors, you'll enter a world of knowledge and academic resources. These include the Knox Learning Center, where the Disability Services Office and testing centers are located, and the Writing Center, where students can work directly with our tutors in order to hone their essay skills and get easy A's. And now, to the print collection, which houses over 75,000 books spanning across all 3 of our floors. And if you're looking for truly a peaceful place to read, we also have the Stover Center for Constitutional Studies, with various nooks and crannies for students to hide away in with a good book. And if you need us to print out something for your next class, head on to the 3rd floor at the Eberly Library.
Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly for this segment where we're talking about men's and women's soccer. And of course, we have with us up on the desk today, Michael McKenzie. Now, Mike, how are you today, bro?
I'm doing great. It's always a great day when I can come up on the desk.
Talk
some men's and women's soccer.
Always a great day. But let's stick with the men's side of things first. They played 2 matches in this week that we haven't been here. Give us a little bit of a breakdown of how those matches went.
Well, Westminster, their first conference game or conference match of the season at home at John F. Wiley Stadium. We were there covering the game.
There covering.
I was lucky enough to be on the call for that game, and what a match it was. 1-0 going into halftime, 7 combined goals between the 2 teams in the second half. Waynesburg nets 4 of them. Westminster only netted 3, which means Waynesburg came out with a 5-3 win. High scoring, energetic game, was just all around great to see from the team to rally after going up 1-0. Going up 2-1, and then allowing 2 quick goals from Connor Schmidt of Westminster. That put Westminster up 3-2. Waynesburg would score 3 unanswered to end the match. And then they go to Bethany. Pretty dominant win, 3-0 over the Bison to get to 2-0 in conference play. It's just a great start to the conference season for the men all around. High, energetic win against Westminster, where they kind of had to rally in the second half after being up, then sacrificing the lead. Then Bethany, just domination from pillar to post, really.
Yeah, we talked about the PAC play. They are currently 2-0. Does this show promise for the remainder of the season we're going to see from this men's team?
I think it does, especially considering when the freshman we've raved about pretty much all season long so far, Sarpong Kwabia, is continuing to show us his promise himself. He had 2 goals against Westminster, 2 goals against Bethany, 7 now on the season, 4 goals in 2 conference matches of the year. I mean, the stats speak for themselves for how special Kwabia is. I mean, in our top 5 plays, one of his goals, the game winner against Lancaster Bible a couple of weeks ago, made it in there, and he just won Men's Athlete of the Week, I believe. So, he's having a great start to the season, and I think him and his stats show just overall this team's promise. Some of the other sophomores and freshmen, Josh Smith, Matthew Serrano, Zachary Johnson, who we'll talk about a little more here in a few minutes, but just a young team all around, just to show the dominance against Bethany and the rally against Westminster. I'm really excited to see what this team can do the rest of the year.
And let's talk about a little bit about that Bethany game, 3-0 game, a shutout in conference play. How important is it that they get that shutout win? I mean, Frankus has got to be feeling pretty ecstatic right now, and that's so important, I feel, for the remainder of this PAC play.
I mean, he's got such a high save rate. I mean, they really aren't giving up that many goals as long as they keep the opportunities, even when it comes to shots and shots on goal and that such. That's really been my main talking point most of the season. So let's get into it a little bit. Westminster, they outshot Westminster 20-14 overall, 10-6 in shots on goal. That's exactly where you want to be if you're Westminster, especially with defense and that goalie, like we just talked about, Michael Frankus. And then you go to Bethany, and you outshoot Bethany in that game, both in shots and shots on goal. So you're talking about a team that is starting to correct the biggest thing we were talking about, the lack of even shots. They were giving up so many shots and so many shots on goal. And you're asking Frankus to do a little too much in non-conference play. Now you're asking him to kind of sit back, watch a little bit, and then obviously when his time comes, he's going to deliver more times than not. And we've really seen that in these first 2 conference matches, especially in the shutout win like you just talked about against Bethany.
Yeah, and so far we talked about him already, and I mean it's hard not to mention him. Sarpong Kwabia. I mean, he's been showing his talents and very quickly, especially early in this season. But with that, defenses are going to pick up on that, and they're going to be preparing for Sarpong. So with that, defenses are going to be knowing we gotta watch him, we gotta protect him. Who do you see who's going to pop out in front of this crowd that's going to take over when Sarpong is going to be defended very well?
My pick would be Zachary Johnson. I mentioned him a couple of minutes ago. You know, he's got 3 goals on the season now. Was the leading goal scorer last year as a freshman. We saw him have the freshman promise that we really see from Sarpong Kwabia right now. So I think he's going to start coming into his own a little bit. He's scaled back his role a little bit, been a lot more of a team player, still making great plays all over the pitch. I expect him to start getting a little more onto the goal scorer sheet. You're going to start seeing teams marking Kwabia, doubling him. I would be surprised if you see Kwabia continue to get the chances, as many as he's gotten, considering he's made the name for himself that he has in these first 2 conference matches of the season. He's going to get marked. He's going to get doubled. You're going to start seeing teams try to take him out of the equation a little bit. Zachary Johnson is the main guy, at least in terms of goal scorers. I expect to start popping out on the stat sheet and making a name for himself yet again, the same way he did a year ago.
All right, that's going to do it for our men's side of things. Let's move over to the women's side of things. They had a pretty rough week last week, losing to Westminster and Bethany on Saturday. Just what do you think, Mike, is kind of the main issue that they have right now?
The ball bouncing in their favor. Sometimes it's just as simple as you play a good, tightly contested match, and the ball just doesn't bounce your way, or one little mistake, a foul in the box resulting in a PK for Westminster. It was the only goal of that game. They lose 1-0. Greenleaf played great in goal both matches. You lose 2-1 against Bethany. You're outshot only 13-10, 5-3 in shots on goal. That's very evenly matched. It's just a matter of the ball not bouncing your way sometimes. So just a couple of unfortunate losses to Westminster. And Bethany, very minuscule, tiny mistakes here and there in terms of strategy and execution. Nothing major that pops out at you when you watch the game or watch a match or look at the stat sheet. There will be things that I believe correct themselves, and at some point, one way or another, with a team as good as this women's team is, or that I talked about last week and have been talking about the majority of the season so far, they're going to get things corrected. I don't think the 0-2 start is something to really hit the panic button over or, make a big deal out of. The ball's going to bounce their way at some point. Things are going to correct themselves. Nothing major happened that week other than a couple of things that didn't go your way, and unfortunately, you're 0-2 to start the year. So you got a hole to climb out of. I'm not worried about it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen, we were there for the Westminster one. We were there for the doubleheader. You announced the men's. And for the women's, you and I were watching together. Yeah. And I think
I had a fun time with you, Joe.
Yes, we did. We had a great time. I think one thing that at least I noticed was that the communication on the field has become a little bit poor at times. And I think that's where the offensive struggles have kind of stemmed from. You want to elaborate on that just a little bit more?
Yeah, you get into the attacking third of the field. You really need to know where your outlets are in terms of passing. You need to know what your angle is to take a shot if you're thinking about taking a shot. You got to know what your plan of attack is. And there are times where it seems like they don't have a plan of attack. The spacing isn't great. The positioning on the pitch isn't great. The shot selection at times, I wouldn't harp on the shot selection a lot, but there are a couple where you maybe you try to get an extra pass at maybe a better look, but it's many things. Spacing, shot selection at times, knowing where your outlets are. Those are things I think will correct themselves, but you're right. They're things that you need to go back into practice before your next match coming up against Allegheny this Wednesday, or that's tomorrow actually, against Allegheny. It's coming up. We'll have a doubleheader on Woosen as well, Waynesburg University Sports Network. So make sure to tune in, Joey.
Yep.
I'll be listening for sure. I'll be there, and if I'm not in the truck, I'll have the earbud in. I'll make sure to listen to you. But again, minuscule things that I think will correct themselves. Main things in terms of the offensive third of the field: shot selection, spacing, knowing where your outlets are. Those are things that they'll correct. I have no doubt about that.
And you mentioned it, Allegheny. Dub J coming up here. What do you want to see out of this team coming into this week? What would you say is the most valuable thing that they can gather for this week?
Being efficient and executing on the offensive third of the pitch, like we just mentioned, knowing where your outlets are, shot selection, all those things. See that executed a little bit better. I like what the defense has looked like through a couple of conference matches. I like what Greenleaf's done in goal. I know 2 goals against Bethany. It's not great, but that's not a poor performance for a goalie at all, especially at this level. Almost a shutout against Westminster. The only goal allowed was the PK in the second half. I mean, I expect this team to bounce back at least one this week. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they can pick up a pair of wins. But again, the offensive third of the field, if you can be more efficient and execute more there, good things will come, because the rest of the game for Waynesburg, the rest of soccer, the way that the women's team has played at least, that has been very solid, efficient. All you need is that offensive third to go your way, communication, all those things. If that happens, I don't see why Waynesburg can't get to 2-2 on the season, at least for the women's side of things, and put yourself back into a good position to make the playoffs come later in the year.
Yep.
Yeah, well, awesome. Seth, thank you for joining us here. Mackenzie, you as well. Michael McKenzie, you as well. But that's going to do it all for us here on JSW. Make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 10 a.m. for your Jacket Sports Weekly update. But that's going to do it all for us. Thanks, and have a great day.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.